Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming today. As Connor said, I am a news anchor, but I don't usually get to see the faces of the people that I'm talking to, so this is a great change of pace. Very excited to be here today for Women's History Month and to tell you guys a little bit more about the Miss America and the Miss South Dakota organizations. They've had a huge impact on me and a lot of women across this state and this country. So the name of today's presentation is Here She Is, the Second Century of Miss America. Troy Kilpatrick and I talked about doing this for quite a long time, and it worked out when he brought back turtle soup. And I think maybe we were a little premature with the title because I'm going to talk about the first century of Miss America, tell you guys a little bit of the timeline, and just give you a hint of what that next century could look like. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So what exactly is the Miss America opportunity? So as you see here, it's a public perception of Miss America is often that it's a one-night telecast. But in reality, it's so much more than this. Unique Opportunity is a year-round program of style, service, scholarship, and success, the 4 points of our crown, representing those 4 points to America. So Miss America is that top tier. You work down to the state level. You have Miss South Dakota, and then you work your way down to the lowest tier, which is our local competitors, which is what I am. I am Miss Missouri River. So going through the timeline that is Miss America, it began more than 100 years ago in 1921. Our very first Miss America was Margaret Gorman, as you can see here. She was presented with the Watkins Trophy for the Intercity Beauty Contest, and then the next day, riding on that popularity, she actually won another contest, the Bathurst Review. This was in Atlantic City, and from that point on, that's where we got Miss America. These came together to create the Miss America competition, and it was essentially designed to attract tourists to Atlantic City to extend the Labor Day holiday weekend and enjoy some of the festivities that they had there in Atlantic City. So I can imagine that they didn't think that this was maybe going to become, a household name, a staple for more than a century and beyond, but it has been. Now it's evolved into so much more, and we're going to get into that, but some notable moments from that very first decade of Miss America include the first and only woman to win the competition 2 years in a row, Mary Campbell, and then they put a kibosh on that. They said, let's get some other women in there too. And we had the first Native American woman to win the crown. Her name was Norma Smallwood, and that was just in that first decade. Moving on to the 30s and the 40s. From 1928 to 1932, there actually was no Miss America competition. The pageant was discontinued after 1927 because of protests from women's groups and religious organizations. But the Hotelmen's Association withdrew support, fearing that it would hurt their tourist trade. So initially it was started to bring more people in, and then there was a bit of a concern that it would hurt what they were trying to do. And then, of course, the Great Depression hit the country between 1929 and 1933, so they were unsure if this was something that they could feasibly and financially continue. And then some prominent Atlantic City businessmen decided to revive the pageant after being convinced that they were missing out on valuable revenue. But the outdoor parades and some of the other big attractions that they'd done before this were left out because of that cost factor with the Depression era. Now, moving past that, in 1935, Henrietta Lever won the crown, and she was the first woman to compete in 3 nights of preliminary competitions, as well as the eventual fan favorite portion of talent. So now today we have multiple nights of preliminary competition, and then we move on to the finals where just a select few women will compete for the opportunity to be Miss South Dakota, Miss America. The other areas at that time in the 30s were talent. There was an interview with the judges, which is continued into today. There was an evening wear portion, which is something we still do, and there was a swimsuit portion. Moving to the 40s saw the start of South Dakota vying for the title of Miss America. We actually had our very first competitor, Rosalind Lee Anderson. She came from St. Ange, so right here in our area, and she was Miss South Dakota from 1946 to 1947, kicking off the next 75 years of our Miss South Dakotas. Moving now into the 50s, this marked the start of post-dating the title. So now it became Miss America 1950, 1951, and so on. So in September of 1950, Miss Alabama Yolanda Betsby was crowned Miss America 1951. And with television taking the country by storm, the advent of the national telecast caught the imagination of the American public. So for the first time, Miss America came into people's homes, and the annual program provided a kind of entertainment that had never been experienced before nationally, and that's continued to today. It seemed that the women on stage embodied the dreams of every young woman and girl. And by the end of the 50s, Miss America had become an international symbol of the ideal young woman. For many, their earliest memories of television are of Bert Parkins surrounded by intelligent and beautiful young women vying for the crown. The 50th anniversary in 1970 saw a rise in television ratings, but people were still questioning the relevance of Miss America, and that's something that's continued into today. By 1974, a law student was crowned, and she was a doctoral student as well. And this was kind of the groundwork for the modern Miss America that we see today. Not only were contestants becoming more interested in gaining a good education, they also saw Miss America as a means to success. As the momentum of the women's movement grew, the women of Miss America were increasingly turning their attention to their professional goals. In the 80s, Miss America maintained its prominence and popularity in a world that was quickly changing. The decade witnessed the crowning of the first African-American woman, Vanessa Williams. As you can see here, you may recognize her from television programs. Like I said, she was our very first African-American Miss America, definitely somebody that I look up to. Later in her year, Vanessa Williams actually witnessed resignation. This became a turning point in the evolution of the program's history. There were some issues with her year. She didn't necessarily agree what Miss America was asking her to do, so she decided to step down. And this was a big turning point in who Miss America is and what she does for this country. The 1990s marked a new era as young women increasingly began to see the Miss America program as an opportunity to pursue higher education, professional opportunities, and social causes. Winners of the title started becoming internationally recognized spokeswomen on issues ranging from literacy to AIDS awareness. Each Miss America was now required to have a platform issue to increase the public's awareness during their national speaking tour. The 90s saw the first disabled Miss America, crowned in 1995, Heather Whitestone, as you can see here, as well as the removal of height and weight requirements in the National Program Book. That took until the 1990s to stop telling people how much you weighed and how tall you are. So as a 5'4" woman, I'm thankful for that. Moving into the 2000s. Now, the new millennium brought many exciting changes, as did every decade, and exciting challenges as well to the Miss America organization. The Scholarship Foundation continued to grow, and more individuals began to recognize the importance of the countless community service hours that the contestants offered to their communities. In conjunction with CMT and TC, the organization was fortunate to align itself with a new network partner who understood the intrinsic value of this institution while making it more relatable to young women across America. In 2005, the organization grew to better prepare young women for the world and prepare the world for young women. The Miss America organization launched Miss America's Outstanding Teen, which made its debut in Orlando, Florida. That's continued through today, so every Miss title holder, like myself, has a teen that we get to help be a role model for, and we get to help prepare them for the next chapter of life. Now, the 2010s is when I fell in love with Miss America. When I found out about Miss America, I didn't actually grow up watching it. So many of these women up here on the screen are who I watched and who inspired me to start my journey with Miss America. Now, Miss America evolved in society as women have evolved in society. In 2019, candidates were no longer judged on physical appearance, and that meant the elimination of the swimsuit competition, and additional time and focus was brought to candidates' voices to be heard more throughout the competition in interviews. So instead of having the swimsuit portion that left in 2018, I believe it was, and we focused more on our social impact initiatives, our platforms, the causes that we saw as important in our community, and less focus on maybe the way that your body was built or how you looked. Candidates had additional opportunities to advocate for their social impact initiatives and demonstrate how they were uniquely qualified for the exciting and challenging 365-day job of being Miss America, Miss South Dakota, and even a local title holder. In 2020, Camille Schreier performed a science demonstration, as you can see there on the end, and her talent was the first STEM candidate to actually win the job of Miss America. And then not long after her crowning, many of us know that something happened. We had the COVID-19 pandemic that began, so Camille actually had her reign for 2 years. So they put a kibosh on having women compete multiple years in a row, but because of the pandemic, Camille had the opportunity to continue to serve America as our Miss America. And then finally, we hit 100 years of Miss America. After 2 world wars and countless changes, a pandemic, and many more, Miss America has stood the test of time, celebrating 100 years with the crowning of our first Korean American Miss America, Emma Broyles. So Emma was our 100th Miss America. Very, very exciting to see that happen, especially as we were seeing changes in our world, we were seeing changes in our organization. Now, before we move on to today, South Dakota's through the year. So here's a quick video.
Jennifer Palmquist, Miss Miss South Dakota. Is Melissa Brown, Miss Rapid City.
Leslie Saunders, Miss East River.
Is Angela Casey, Miss Rushmore. This is the Trisha Harrelson, Miss Jessica Lawrence, Miss Brookings.
Your new Mrs. South Dakota is Nicole Nick.
The new Miss South Dakota is Alicia Schulte, Miss White Plain.
Vanessa Shortbow, you are our new Miss South Dakota 2000 year TV sets on the evening of September 21st. You will have a chance to watch.
Your new Miss South Dakota is Sarah Simo.
Hiram Corver, you are our new Miss South Dakota. Nikki Grand Prix, you are our new Miss South Dakota. And make this world seem bright. Kelly Bauman, you are the new Miss South Dakota. Kyle, Kate Wismer, you are the new Miss South Dakota. Our new Miss South Dakota is Alexandra Hoffman, Miss South Dakota State University.
Girl, we knew somehow we'd find her.
Morgan Peck, Miss University of South Dakota. This is the Lauren Valancourt, Miss Hub City. Anna Simpson, you are our new Miss South Dakota. Callista Kirby, you are our new Miss South Dakota.
And your Miss South Dakota 2013 is Tessa Dean. Meredith Gould, Miss Lake Alvin.
Duet Oshima, your Miss South Dakota 2015.
Julia Olson, Miss Missouri Valley. To see this young lady walking that ramp,
So Miranda Max, our new Miss South Dakota.
Our new Miss South Dakota and winner of a $9,400 scholarship is Carrie Winto. Amber Hulse, you are the new Miss South Dakota. Coming into play is here and now.
Your new Miss South Dakota is Kaylin O'Neill.
I'm not sure if you were counting or not, but there were only 74 Miss South Dakotas in that. That's because we are now in our 75th year as we are in our 101st year of Miss America. So today we have a new Miss America. She was crowned last December. Her name is Grace Stanke. She's a Midwestern girl from Wisconsin. And I had the opportunity to see her compete and be crowned in December while cheering on our current Miss South Dakota, Hunter Widvey. And we're lucky enough to have her here with us today, and I'd love to invite her up to the podium to tell us a little bit about her journey with Miss America.
Hello, can you hear me all right? Okay. I have my eyes here. Well, first of all, thank you, Miranda, for inviting me. I'm actually from Rapid City, so I didn't have to travel too far to be here today. And yeah, watching that video, it's always makes me a little bit emotional. I remember watching that video came out last year, right before right as we were competing at Miss South Dakota, and I just so badly wanted to be a part of that. And you work so hard for this. I think it was my third time competing for Miss South Dakota that I won, and there's a lot that goes into it, as Miranda was kind of mentioning. It's not just a girl in a crowd that walks around and smiles and looks pretty, but there's a lot that goes into the job of being Miss South Dakota, which for me has been a lot of traveling across South Dakota, raising awareness for pediatric cancer, visiting any community event I can. Singing the national anthem has been a big thing for me. So just last night I was singing at the Rush game for the national anthem. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and when you work so hard for it, it's just, you see those girls' reactions up there, and some of them seem a little bit maybe over the top, but when you finally have your name called up there, it's such a big deal, and it's so rewarding because as a local title holder, you put in so much time and effort trying to obtain this goal because it's really an opportunity of a lifetime. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Hunter Widvey. I'm from Rapid City. I currently work at the Black Hills Regional Eye Institute doing clinical research with macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, all of that. I graduated from Augustana University in 2021. I majored in biology and government international affairs, and then I'll be getting medical school in July at Des Moines University in Iowa. So I really like science. I want to be a physician. That's kind of about me. I started in Miss South Dakota when I was 16 years old. I competed at Miss South Dakota's Outstanding Teen. But my first competition, I don't know if any of you know Sarah Frankenstein, she was up on the video up here, but I competed at her local competition, and I was talked into competing by Val Simpson, if any of you know her. She's in the community, she talked me into getting involved, and at first I was a little hesitant because I've never considered myself a pageant girl. But I decided to give it a try, mainly because I heard all the scholarships involved. And so when my parents heard about that, they're like, you have to get involved because you need scholarships for college. So I got talked into doing it, and I was Miss Rapid City's Outstanding Teen. And then later that year, I won Miss South Dakota's Outstanding Teen. And that's kind of how I got roped into all of this, and I had such an amazing experience. As the teen, you don't do quite as much as Miss South Dakota, but you get to come along, and like Miranda was mentioning, you get a lot of mentoring from your Miss South Dakota. So my Miss South Dakota was Julia Olson, and she was such a great mentor to me and really taught me how to get involved in my community, be a good person, how to treat others, and she had such a good impact on me that I wanted to keep going and wanted to do what she did as Miss South Dakota. And so as Miss South Dakota's Outstanding Teen, did all of that, went to college for a year, took a year off just to kind of figure out how college is, and then my sophomore year of college, or going into that, I competed again. And my first title was, what was it? I think it was Miss Missouri. Oh wow, I really need to figure out what all my titles were. But I was at one point Miss Missouri River. I was also Miss Huron. I was Miss Wheel Jam. That was my first one, I think, Miss Wheel Jam. And that was at the state fair. And so there's a Wheel Jam festival where they bring in all these older cars and do that. So those were my 3 titles that I had throughout college, and actually helped me pay for my college as I was going. I think the first year I was competing, I won $4,000 in scholarships. So that kind of just kept going to my college as I was going through. The second year I won $5,000. And then this year as Miss South Dakota, I won $11,000. And then when I went to compete at Miss America, I won $3,000 in scholarships. So since I was a teen and now, I've earned $27,000 in scholarships, which is awesome because medical school is going to be really expensive to help me graduate undergrad debt-free, which is awesome. And like Miranda mentioned earlier, Miss America is the largest provider of scholarships for young women. So that was a big incentive for me to stay involved. But also, as I kept going through each year of my involvement, I made a lot of really great connections throughout the community, gave me opportunities to get involved in community events, volunteer, keep making those connections, build up my resume because of all these awesome things that we get to do throughout this organization. And I really do believe that it was a big part of me getting accepted into medical school because it gave me so many great things to speak about on my resume, but also gave me the skill of public speaking, which is really important for the interview portion of medical school. So that's kind of how I got involved. My last year at Miss South Dakota, I wasn't saying I almost didn't compete, but at that point I had to decide, did I want to compete one more year at Miss South Dakota or do I want to go to medical school? So I decided I wanted to give it one more shot because it was something that I really dreamed of and always had wanted. And so once I won Miss South Dakota, I put medical school on hold for a year. So I deferred that opportunity. And I don't regret any part of it just because I've been able to have so many amazing experiences this year and travel across South Dakota. It's really helped me appreciate everything that South Dakota has to offer. I've always considered myself a West River girl and thought that, West River, best river, but I've gone to East River so many times and you get to see the beauty and the large farmlands and not much to see sometimes when you're driving, but there's beauty in that as well. And so I've really gotten to appreciate my time throughout South Dakota. And so recently what I was doing, I mentioned that I've advocated for pediatric cancer awareness. And so just recently I got done, I developed a bill, with some legislators in Pierre. So I had an idea of wanting to increase funds for pediatric cancer research and resources in South Dakota. And so I reached out to some of our legislators, specifically Representative Drury and Senator Castleberry, helped me develop a bill that would increase these funds for pediatric cancer research and resources in South Dakota. And I feel like being Miss South Dakota kind of opened this door, kind of helped me kind of see what goals do I have throughout my year and what do I want to do. And this opened the door for me to go to Pierre and work on legislation. And so I developed this bill with those representative and senators' help. And I got the bill through the Health and Human Services Committee, the House Committee, and then when it got to the Appropriations Committee, it did not make it through, but that's how it goes. But I do think that this has given me a great opportunity to increase awareness and to talk about something that's really important. And so pediatric cancer, I'll kind of tell you why it's important to me. When I was younger, I lost a classmate to pediatric cancer, and then later on in my life, I lost a cousin who was only 26 to cancer. And so during this time, and then while I was in college, I volunteered at the Sanford Children's Hospital in Sioux Falls. I got to meet many pediatric cancer patients and their families. And I learned that pediatric cancer is extremely underfunded. They only receive 8% of the National Cancer Institute's research funds. And so what I was trying to do at the state level was get more funding in place so that we could fund this research and resources at a state level, since we're not getting much at a national level. And so I continue to advocate for this through social media, going to community events, going to events where I can raise money for pediatric cancer. One of my favorite things has been going to the Sanford Children's Hospital in Sioux Falls and visiting pediatric cancer patients, just kind of bringing a little excitement to their day, because sometimes they're in the hospital for quite a bit of time. So it's fun just to kind of provide them a friend and talk to them for a bit. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know, was there any point that you wanted me to touch on more?
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah, so if anyone has any specific questions,
and we'll have a question portion at the end, so we'll make them come back up.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Hopefully I didn't talk your ear off too much, so thank you.
Maybe. Well, I wanted Hunter to come up because she has the job that I'm hoping for. I have actually competed for 5-6 years with the pandemic now. I currently hold the title of Miss Missouri River, and through the last 5-6 years, I've had the opportunity to do some pretty amazing things too. I've earned almost $10,000 in scholarship, so I graduated from South Dakota State University debt-free. Eventually, I'll go on to get my master's. I would like to be Miss South Dakota first, so that way I can put my focus both on that and my community, and then my focus on my master's and continuing to be an anchor for the news for our area. But the same thing with Hunter. I've had an opportunity to advocate for something that I feel very strongly about in our community, and for me that's literacy. So I created something called Page Turners, Fall in Love with Reading, and it's been an opportunity for me to get books into people's hands across South Dakota. I'm from a very small town. If any of you know where Martin, South Dakota is, you know it's about 1,000 people, and there's really not much around it. So we do have a public library, but there's a lot of space between us and, say, Rapid City or us and Sioux Falls. So I've been able to donate almost 6,000 books to places across our state. I've taken those in and been able to redistribute those. I've created a podcast called the Page Turners Podcast, and I've also built little free libraries. If anybody knows what they are, they're essentially a little tiny home for libraries that people can put up at their house, or there's one at the Boys and Girls Club, or the Boys Club that I built for them. So that's been my passion project the last few years, and something that hopefully, if I get the opportunity to be Miss South Dakota, I will get to continue. So what exactly does that mean? How do I become Miss South Dakota? And I think we've got about 10 more minutes. So I want to break down the areas of competition. So as you heard through that timeline of the first century of Miss America, a lot of things have changed over the 101 years, and they've changed once again. So we have a private interview. Before you get to see anything on stage, we have a one-on-one conversation with 5 to 7 judges. So this is perfect practice for me. Thank you, everybody. So I get to go in and I will give them a 30-second spiel about who I am and why I'm passionate about literacy. And then they'll ask me questions for 9 minutes. And they can hit me with anything that they feel, from what's your favorite color to how do you feel about certain societal changes or politics. So it's 9 minutes of pretty much anything, and then a 30-second opportunity to tell them why I think I would be good for the job of Miss South Dakota. That's 10 minutes with them before the rest of the competition even starts. Then on stage, we have the talent portion, which is a fan favorite. Everybody truly enjoys talent. And if we have a few minutes before the question portion, we may make Miss South Dakota do her talent for you guys. It's pretty fantastic. That is the talent portion. I do musical theater, so I'm a singer. It's something that I love, and hopefully maybe one day we'll be able to come back, have another young woman giving this presentation, and I will sing for you guys. We have the evening gown portion, which is exactly what it sounds like. You get to walk in an evening gown. It's a lot of fun because it's an opportunity to dress up and show your personality. So there's really not much for guideline other than what makes you feel confident and what you're going to be able to get on that stage and show people who you are. The health and fitness portion is brand new, so you may have noticed from the timeline portion of the presentation that there used to be a swimsuit portion of the competition. I competed in that my first year, and then it went away, and now they're bringing back health and fitness to make sure that women don't fit into a mold, but that they're focused on making their mental health, their overall health, a priority in their lives. So this is going to be an opportunity to come out, strut my stuff, show off how I'm keeping myself healthy. So I'll get to talk about making sure I go to the gym, loving to cook, and keeping my meals healthy. So that's what that portion looks like. And then we have the onstage conversation. That's a continuation of the private interview. So it's another opportunity for the judges and the crowd to see how we answer certain questions. So it's typically 2, and again, those can range from what's your favorite color to how do you feel about this certain topic. So you always have to be on your toes. But that's kind of the beauty of this, is because when you have the opportunity to be Miss South Dakota or Miss America, you're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to meet a lot of people with different opinions and ideas and questions, and they're going to want to know how you feel. So that's how they understand that you can handle that pressure. So those are the areas of competition for the Miss South Dakota competition and the Miss America competition. And we have just a few minutes. Would everybody like to hear Hunter sing? Yeah. Yes? Okay. I told her she was doing this at the last minute. I think I muted it. Oh.
That is a big part of why the interview is really important when you're competing for Miss South Dakota, because there's a lot of times where randomly they're just like, oh, like, so they'll invite me to sing or whatever. Like, by the way, you're giving like a 10-minute speech, or they'll invite me to talk for like a minute, and then like, oh, can you sing God Bless America, America the Beautiful, and the national anthem? I'm like, oh, okay. So you gotta always be on your toes and ready for random little things. That's why interview is so important.
So the talent that you're going to hear now is actually how Hunter won Miss South Dakota last year. This is the talent that she performed. So let's...
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good, stars when they shine, you know how I feel, center of high, you know how I feel, how freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Thank you.
So that is a look at what the next century of Miss America and Miss South Dakota will bring. And with that, that is the end of the presentation, and now we will have the question portion.
Could you kind of explain what kind of business model you have Miss Missouri, Miss St. Allen, Miss Round City? Who selects the judges? Where do they get the money from for the scholarship? Could you kind of go through that a little bit?
Absolutely. So the question was kind of the business model of Miss America. Who selects the judges? How do scholarships work? That sort of thing. And Hunter can actually speak to those sort of behind the scenes portions a little bit better than I can.
Okay, so first we'll start with judges. There's judges for different levels. So there's local competitions. So for Miranda to become Miss Missouri Valley, there was a local judges panel. So she didn't just get that title. She had to compete at a local competition, and at that level, it'll be the director of the competition that selects those judges. But Miss America has guidelines that all local and state competitions have to follow for the judges. So the judges can't know any of the candidates or have any sort of like familial ties or friends so that they would like know the candidates in any way, or they can't have any like financial incentive. So if like the judges for some reason had some sort of finances involved in the Miss America organization or any sort of ties, like if they were on the board or anything like that, they could not be a judge. And so that's how the judges are selected. And at the state level, it's a bit bigger of a deal. These judges often come in from out of state. Last year we had judges from Alabama, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and then we had 2 from South Dakota. And lots of times they like to include a former Miss South Dakota on the panel just because they know what the job is like and have very relevant questions as to their experience with Miss South Dakota. And so that's how the judges are selected. And we have an actual judges coordinator for the state level that is solely her job and making sure that she gets good judges selected for their competition. And then as for scholarships, the finances part, there's 2 different parts. So there's the Miss South Dakota organization, there's the Miss South Dakota Scholarship Foundation. And so there's 2 parts because people will donate money and sometimes they'll want it to be donated towards a nonprofit organization for tax incentives. And so a lot of times we'll get donations for that reason. And so if you're ever interested in donating to the South Dakota organization, you know where to find us if you want the tax benefits there. And it's a great cause. But it's all donors. People donate towards these scholarships. Last year, I believe we had almost $60,000 of scholarships that were given away at the Miss South Dakota competition. And a lot of people really like to support the cause because it's going towards young women. I know I earned a scholarship last year for being a woman in STEM, so I earned $750 just from an engineering firm in Brookings, South Dakota, donated to support young women pursuing a future in STEM. So do you have more specific questions about that, or is that it? Okay.
And for us local title holders, that's a big portion of our year kind of preparing for Miss South Dakota as well, is opportunities like this so that people can understand what it is that we do and why Miss South Dakota and Miss America are important. So about a month ago now, I had the opportunity to do a fundraiser with the Rapid City Rush. So I got to talk with more people there, and we fundraised for the scholarship fund, brought in almost $2,000 for that. So it's people like you that decide to give, but it's also us doing the groundwork and making sure that people understand what we do and why we do it and how beneficial our scholarships are.
Another thing off that is, like, as Miss South Dakota, you give up a year of your life, basically, in a good way. Of course, I love being Miss South Dakota, but you don't get paid to be Miss South Dakota. And so a lot of my job is also reaching out and finding sponsors to sponsor me, or like sponsored gas, or travels, food, lodging, stuff like that. And so it's really just like using your networking and building those connections up and finding people that support the same causes in young women.
Any other questions? Oh, come on, I know you guys have got some for us.
Any
Even if
crazy
it's favorite color.
Do you feel like you impacted pediatric cancer in the West River area for being available to kids out here?
You know, pediatric cancer West River is a tough thing because we don't have a PICU or a pediatric intensive care unit, and so a lot of times these kids will have to drive to Sioux Falls or to Denver, and that was a big part of my legislation that I was working on, was trying to get more resources in place for the kids that are in West River, South Dakota, to be able to have more funds to travel or have resources here West River. And so I've tried to impact it in ways, but sometimes you don't always get that goal obtained right away. And so I'm hoping just by bringing awareness to it and bringing more discussion to it, that in some way it will benefit West River, South Dakota. But I have had the awesome opportunity of working with CMN here in Rapid City, and they do a lot of stuff with pediatric cancer patients. So hopefully, I hope that I've been able to impact them, but all you can do is just try your best and get involved wherever you can and hope you're impacting them in some way. Did you have a question?
I'm just curious, how many contestants are there typically in the Miss South Dakota contest?
So how many contestants are there in the Miss South Dakota contest? It fluctuates year to year. So like I said, I've competed for 5 years, and I believe the first year I competed at the state level, there were 16 of us. Now at the local level, that can look completely different. I've competed with 2 other women. I've also competed with 15 other women. This year we will have 20 misses and 17 teens, which is pretty fantastic numbers for us. So pretty large. And then of course at the Miss America level, 50, and then in previous years, well, it's 51 with DC, and in previous years we've had Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands too, just depending on the year. Any other questions?
What changes happened when it moved from Hot Springs to Sioux Falls as the pageants?
So what changes happened as the organization, the Miss South Dakota competition, moved from Hot Springs to Brookings, South Dakota? So Miss South Dakota was in Hot Springs for 72 years. 72. I think it's 72 years. So long-standing tradition there, very ingrained in the community, and it was very, very hard to leave. But again, this organization is based on scholarships and opportunities. And as much as we love, and we still love and do many things with the Hot Springs community, we needed to be able to grow. And that's why the decision was made to open that up. And so it was opened up to communities across South Dakota to essentially bid to have Miss South Dakota there, to show why they were going to be able to help our organization grow. Hot Springs did put in for that, as did a number of other towns. But they decided to go with Brookings for a number of reasons, one of which is the university there. They're able to work with them in order to provide more scholarship dollars. Any other questions? How do you keep the crown on?
How do you keep Good question. So there's actually I got some barrettes on here. She might be able to show you, but there's little elastics, and then I put barrettes in it to hold it on. Yeah.
does not just sit there nicely. I'm passing mine around so you guys can give it a look
Yes, you can
and
give
maybe
it a
try
look.
it on if you so choose.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, well, not a question, but maybe more of like a clarifying thing. Did you guys know that there's a lot of, like, there's technically several different Miss South Dakotas? Like, there's different organizations. Is that something that any of you knew? So there's Miss America, there's Miss USA, Miss America, National American Miss, there's Miss America World, International, all these different, there's a few Miss South Dakotas. Well, technically, Miss South Dakota, so we're with the Miss America organization. We're the only Miss South Dakota that does not have anything after it. We are just Miss South Dakota. But then when you have the other ones, there might be like Miss South Dakota USA, Miss South Dakota International, Miss South Dakota National American. So there are a lot of, if you ever are confused, because maybe you see like a few different Miss South Dakotas or different Miss Americas, Miss USAs. I know some people get confused thinking that after Miss America you go to Miss World, but that would be Miss USA. So to be at Miss USA, it's like Miss South Dakota USA, Miss USA, Miss, or is it Miss International? Universe, Miss Universe, thank you. Miss Universe. But
We just have the 3 tiers.
yes, we just have 3 tiers. We stop at Miss America. We're done there. And a big thing that differentiates us from different organizations is the scholarships and the fact that we have a talent portion. So we're really big on empowering women and making sure that they're pursuing their education in whatever field they want, while also giving them an opportunity to share their talents with everyone. So I know that's been a question. A lot of people sometimes wonder, like, wait, is there 2 Miss Americas, or what is this? So that's another big thing. That's what makes our organization so special, is the scholarships and the talent portion. Talent's my favorite, but.
Beautiful. You look great.
Oh, look at that. I think everyone over here is maybe jealous they didn't try it on.
Any other questions? I think we have just a few more minutes.
Any other questions?
So everyone, let's give it
Yes, thank you guys so much, and I'll tell you, I was nervous because I've never had the opportunity to do a 45-minute long presentation, so I thank you all so much for coming and learning just a little bit about what we do and who we are and what we stand for. Thank you guys so much.